Yeah.
It's just a rhetorical question, whatever. But have your insurance rates gone up or down in the last few years? Really, since Obamacare. But have your rates gone up or down? I will tell you from my own personal experience, mine have gone up. And I don't know a single person who have had their health insurance, if they have health insurance, I don't know a single person who will tell me that their rates have gone down and their coverage has been the same or gone up. I mean, they're just, or gotten better. Like, nobody. And I polled my friends and my family and so forth, and there's not one person that have been able to tell me, oh, yeah, my insurance rates, they went down and my coverage stayed the same, or my coverage got better. It is the exact opposite. And most people who have to, and I know many, because here's the sad thing, folks, when you work in radio, Joan, you know this, Sam, you know this, you work in radio right now, you know a whole lot of people who have lost their jobs.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
And so now those people have been thrown out into the cold trying to buy health insurance on the exchange, on Obamacare. And it is really expensive. And Obamacare made it worse. Obamacare people, and I know I'm banging the same drum, but Obamacare meant a number of things. Obamacare meant that you could not keep your doctor or keep your plan, right? That happened. If you wanted health insurance or you had to buy health insurance on the exchange, then it was really, and I mean really expensive. It's gotten far more expensive. And it also, and we went through that around here, if you work, over 29 hours, I think it was, then the company has to give you full-time status, health insurance status. And so if you were working, part-time, but you were making 37, 38, hours a week, well, that got cut down to 29. I mean, there's so many different things that Obamacare did to make it harder for Americans to afford health insurance. And the reason why I bring this up is because we now have this battle over Obamacare subsidies, and the Democrats are trying to claim some sort of moral authority because the Republicans are going to allow these Obamacare subsidies to expire when these same Democrats, they were the ones that put it in the bill in the first place to expire in 2025, these subsidies. And here's the thing. My health insurance keeps going up. No Democrat seems to give a crap about my health insurance going up. Nobody, Joan, cares that your health insurance is going up. If you're driving along I-65 or I-24 right now, or I-40, and your health insurance is going up, do you think the Democrats give a crap about your health insurance going up? No.
Not one.
No. They want to make sure that the illegal aliens, their health insurance is free.
It's free, not
or
just
subsidized.
Yeah.
And if you are, somebody who is trying to buy health insurance, it is just really expensive. But if you are a certain type of person in this country, then you get it for essentially free. And
also, if you're living in California and you're an illegal alien, you're going to get your housing for free.
Is that not the craziest thing ever?
Like, honestly.
I wanted to highlight the glory days. When Obamacare went into effect, at the time, we had Blue Cross Blue Shield for a family of 5, my parents and 3 kids, myself and my 2 siblings. And our deductible for a single earner with my father was $800. My wife and I, on the mid-grade plan from her job, which she works for a law firm, really good insurance. Our deductible is $12,000.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's open enrollment around here, Joan. I don't know if you know that, but it's open enrollment around here.
Yes.
I have not yet looked at it. I've got to, you know what I've got to do? I've got to have some Dan Grias before I look at it.
Here's...
No, because then it'll go up.
Yeah, if I have some Dan Grias?
Yeah, they'll be like, you're an alcoholic. You're at risk.
You know what? Doing this job, I could use a few more drinks. What are you going to say real quick, Joan?
So my husband worked for UPS for 25 years. He was a package slinger,
Yep.
And we had health insurance through UPS. Now he's now on Medicare because he's over 65. So now the plan came to me, and I still have this is such a blessing. I still have the same insurance at the same cost, at the same deductible, at all the same limits that I had years and years and years ago.
You're very lucky.
Unbelievably blessed by it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, there's a
So
lot of
many
people that are
Yep.
just asking, okay, so why is it all of these people? And there's a lot of people, and we played that stupid audio of Congressman Lawler and Hakeem Jeffries going back and forth about, the Republicans want to clean up waste, fraud, and abuse within all of that, and the Democrats want to keep the illegal aliens and so forth on it. And so this is going to be an ongoing debate. But the point that I'm making is that for millions of Americans, no one is subsidizing our health insurance. Nobody is subsidizing it.
No, and my point is that American companies need to be able to, and I'm not blaming the companies, but they need to be able to get back to providing that for their workers.
Yeah.
It's the way that it's always been. Like, that's how families maintained their health care, was through the companies you worked for. It was one of the benefits of going to work for a company.
Well, and they're on getting the free or subsidized health care. There are a lot of people that are getting that who are perfectly able-bodied people that should be out there working. And that's sort of the point, is you've got, people like us, well, people like me and whoever, a lot of you folks listening, who, you're looking at your health care plan and you're like, my gosh, the taxes that I pay, the money that I'm paying for health insurance, and these people are getting their health care subsidized. And you got a lot of people who are illegal aliens who are getting some sort of medical benefits. It is just frustrating because it's coming out of our tax dollars.
And then you get fined if you didn't have health insurance throughout the year.
Oh, there was that as well.
That's over now.
Yeah, that's over now. But Chad Pergram did a great report on Fox News. I'm going to play this coming up next because he really brings all of this right down to the crux of the issue of the government shutdown. Because remember, all the Republicans want to do is reopen the government to continue the conversation. Remember that. All the Republicans want to do is reopen the government and continue the conversation. It is the Democrats who have shut down the government, the Schumer shutdown, who they've shut it down because they think that this is a winning political message, trying to hang this on the Republicans. But I'm telling you, the polling out there shows that people are blaming Democrats. They are blaming Chuck Schumer. This was on Fox News talking about the shutdown.
Good morning. Obamacare is called the Affordable Care Act, but many Republicans believe it's the Unaffordable Care Act. The GOP says demands by Democrats to subsidize the program underscores problems with Obamacare.
Exactly, and that's the reason why they needed to add the additional subsidies in the first place. This was not because of the pandemic. This was because Obamacare is a failed product in the first place. And they used that as an excuse in order to add additional federal dollars in.
Yep, that was Senator Mike Rounds.
Democrats say 22 million Americans will experience spikes with health care premiums unless Congress coughs up the money. Democrats say those funds are essential to offset the cost of Obamacare.
Can I ask a question? Can somebody offset my health care? Like, hey, Sam, Joan, can you guys help offset my health care costs, please?
No, because you got an expensive procedure coming up, buddy, and I'm strapped for cash.
Yeah. All right. So, Sam, vasectomy jokes never get old. You had something on this, Sam?
It's just to add to the entire, perspective of things. Healthcare is not a right. It is a service. People go to school. They take out money to pay to be taught life-saving measures and long-term care for people. And I've seen it play out. One of my best childhood friends is Canadian. And I was on the phone with him one night. He'd broken his arm, and he was in an ER in Canada, in his hometown in Saskatchewan. And he sat in the ER with a broken arm, protruding, but it hadn't broken the skin, for 4 hours before he was seen. Because free healthcare, because it's free.
Right.
So there's less incentive to go to medical school. There's less incentive to be employed in the medical industry in Canada. It is only effective in the countries where everybody works, everybody contributes, and for the majority of the people that want to point to the Norwegian countries and the other white, capitalist, semi-social nations, they're very healthy.
Right.
They eat very well, and they exercise, and they do things that keep them out of the hospital.
Part of the conversation, obviously, is one of, okay, so when we have, and look at California. Joan, you were talking about California earlier, where they're giving people, they're paying people's rent, illegal aliens. They're paying their rent or whatever. So, I mean, that serves as a magnet for illegal aliens to come into our country. Now, obviously, if you have borders that are controlled, that keeps that at bay, like Donald Trump has done. But when you look at some of the benefits that people are getting, and realize some of this is controlled at the state level, obviously, and then you have the federal or national issues as well. But, for me, the bottom line is always going to be this when it comes to that. Number one is they're picking winners and losers. Like, I am forced with all of the taxes that I pay and all of the health insurance that I am paying for. And again, it is really expensive that I am subsidizing other people's health care when I'm paying so much money in taxes. So that's number one. Number two is, okay, so then if these people are getting, and I always say this about subsidies, I always say this about government benefits and so forth. So if they're getting all of these subsidies and they're getting all of these government gimmies, then what inspiration do they have to go out and better themselves, to get a job, to get a full-time job, a good job that offers benefits? If you're subsidizing everything that these folks do, then what impetus do they have to get off the couch? Now, I know that there are truly people who need help, and I totally and completely understand that. That's why the Republicans want to eliminate waste, fraud, and abuse and take care of the people that really need it.
Between 2017 and 2023, federal and state governments spent $27 billion on emergency Medicaid for non-citizen immigrants.
There you go.
And that's not even accounting for these state-level programs like California and New York.
John Fetterman, I don't know if you've heard this, but John Fetterman, he was at the Kennedy Center, and he spoke about the government shutdown, and he spoke about the impact that it is going to have on the Democrats.
I'm the only Democrat in my family. I grew up in a conservative part of Pennsylvania, and I grew up and I know and I love people that voted for President Trump. But they are not fascists. They're not Nazis. They're not trying to destroy the Constitution and those things. And that's part of another thing. I refuse to call people Nazis or fascists, or I would never compare anybody to Hitler and those things. Mm-hmm. And now that kinds of extreme rhetoric is going to continue. We're going to be more likely in resulting in extreme kind of outcomes and political violence and doing all these kinds of things like Charlie Kirk. For me, all I could say is like, let people grieve. Give people the space.
Yep.
I'm not going to use that terrible thing and that Pasek assassination to make my argument and try to put out my views. It's like, my God, he's a father that had his neck blown out by a bullet. And now people have forgotten. President Trump in my state, was shot in the head. And if that could you imagine where our nation would be if he was hit in the same way with Kirk? We really got to turn the temperature down.
Yep.
And we can agree to disagree on these kinds of things. But right now, shutting down the government, I just can't take it that.
Yeah. So John Fetterman, by the way, the further away he gets from that stroke, the more sense he makes.
So Axios has an interesting article about him today.
What's that?
And it says top Democrats in Pennsylvania are maneuvering to run against him in the 2028 primary, threatening to tear the party apart. And they list, who those people are that are going after his seat.
I wonder, do you know anybody in Pennsylvania?
Oh, lots.
I wonder how Pennsylvanians feel about John Fetterman.
Yeah. I tend to know people who are conservative, so I'm
I
just
wonder
guessing,
if he is in the past said that he is not interested in changing parties.
Yeah. Right, but if they're about to primary him, it would make sense for him to go ahead and change parties.
Didn't he run against Dr. Oz for the same seat?
I don't know if that was Fetterman against Dr. Oz. I don't remember that. Well, it may have been.
There was all this controversy of his wife kind of shoving him out having these issues and then having the stroke and everything. And, we gave her due heat for that. But at this point, like, hey, thank you, Mrs. Fetterman, because he's the most rational person in the Democrat Party.
Well, and here's the thing, and I said this. Remember that whole controversy where it was like people were freaking out that he was wearing hoodies inside of the
being disrespectful of the
Capitol.
office. Yeah.
But see, my thing was, okay, so, and I said this at the time, and people got mad at me, whatever. But you know how much in debt we are as a nation? And all those guys were wearing suits. All those women were dressed appropriately. I'm air quoting that. But all those people were, wearing suits or the proper attire.
Yeah.
And they have sent us into $37 trillion, I believe it is, in debt. And so I could give two craps if John Fetterman wears a hoodie because, the problem ain't the hoodie in Congress, folks. Always appreciate our friend Hans von Spakovsky joining us from the Heritage Foundation. Hans, I was explaining earlier that once I figured out how to pronounce your name, I always turn to you for really complicated stuff when it comes to the law. And so the Voting Rights Act from the way back in 1965 is now in front of the Supreme Court, specifically Section 2. Now, the left is freaking out about this, and I understand why. And we'll get to that coming up. They're claiming that Republicans are trying to suppress the vote and so forth. But, this lawsuit in front of the Supreme Court, it's based out of Louisiana, where a couple of years ago, Louisiana, it was forced to come up with a second voting district that effectively, Hans, was based on race, which is a violation of the Constitution. So talk about, is it Calais versus Louisiana?
Yeah, it's Louisiana versus Calais. That's right. And as usual, Democrats on the left are hysterical. But their claims that, oh my gosh, they're going to gut the Voting Rights Act, all this discrimination is going to return. That is just complete BS. If I can say that. Look, here's what this case is about. It's about federal judges abusing the power of Section 2. Look, what Section 2 says very plainly is it bans racial discrimination in the voting context, okay? Mm-hmm. And what happened in Louisiana was they have 6 congressional seats. They redrew them all. They had one congressional seat that's a black minority district in which black voters can elect their candidate of choice. And they got sued by black voters represented by the NAACP saying, yeah, but we're 1/3 of the population of Louisiana, so we should get 2 seats. And a Obama judge said, yeah, you're right. Louisiana, you have to draw up a second seat. Well, here's the problem with that. They didn't. Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act only applies if you can show that there's racial discrimination going on. There was no evidence of discrimination. The only thing the judge had was them saying, well, we're 1/3 of the population, therefore we get a second seat. There is a specific bar in Section 2 that says this does not entitle anyone to proportional representation. That is not required in our Constitution. So anyway, Louisiana does it, draws up a second district. They get sued again, this time by non-black voters who say, look, you drew up that second district based on race. That's a violation of the Equal Protection Clause. Yep. And you had a second court say, yep, you're absolutely right. This was discriminatory. It violates the Constitution. So Louisiana is stuck between 2 different courts telling them 2 totally different things. That's what this case is about.
One of the things, Hans von Spakovsky is joining us, one of the things you always look at Chief Justice John Roberts and where he's going to fall in all this.
Right.
He is very cynical on this second district that was drawn. They were forced to draw in Louisiana. And he's come out, and it's clear that he will be siding with the conservatives on the court. What does that tell you?
Well, I think it tells me two things. One, that he doesn't believe, like the NAACP does, that it's still 1965. I mean, the lawyer who was in there yesterday arguing the case, Janae Nelson, really, she was talking as if it was 1965. She said, I'm almost quoting her, that white Democrats won't vote for black Democratic candidates. Well, that is just patently untrue. And she also said that if they don't have these
Hans, hold on. She said white Democrats will not vote for a black Democrat?
Yes.
That's the most asinine thing I've ever heard.
It is. And she also then said that, well, if they don't create these black majority districts, the blacks won't get elected to the U.S. Congress. Well, the Deputy Solicitor General for the Justice Department, who was there arguing on behalf of the voters who said this was an equal protection claim, pointed out that there are 60 black members of the U.S. Congress. Only 15 of them were elected in majority black districts. So what that woman said is totally untrue. And by the way, there are many black candidates who are Republicans. And that actually points out the real problem with the Voting Rights Act and the way it's been applied. And again, this was brought up by the deputy SG from the Trump Justice Department. He said the problem is judges are failing to distinguish between race and politics. In other words, black candidates will lose in places not because of their race, but because they're Democrats. And
yes.
not, if they were Republican, they'd win. But these judges come in and they say, oh, well, this black Democrat lost, it must be race. When it wasn't race, it was politics. And then they come in and order a race-based remedy. So that's really the big issue here. They're not going to throw out Section 2 like you'll read in the New York Times. What they're going to do, I think, is say you can only apply a remedy if you can show current racial discrimination is going on. By the way, that was another thing the NAACP was pushing was it doesn't matter if there's no current discrimination. If it happened 50 years ago, you still have to remedy it today. And there's no way the Chief Justice is going to agree to that.
No, and this sounds like it's a classic case of, conservatives versus the liberals on the court. But when John Roberts it sounds like he's going to side with the conservatives on this. Let's just say that the Supreme Court does side with the Republicans on Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act of 1965. So ultimately then, what will be the real-life implications of this on the midterm elections?
Well, what it means is that state legislatures aren't going to have to create these black majority districts, which are basically created at the behest of the Democratic Party to ensure that a Democrat is elected, unless they can actually show that the legislature currently has engaged in racial discrimination. And they're just not going to find that. And so, will seats get shifted? Yeah, they probably will. But seats are being shifted anyway because Democrats are losing their exclusive hold on, for example, Hispanics. You remember in the last presidential election in Texas, for the first time, a majority of Hispanics voted for who? Donald Trump, not the Democratic candidates. That used to be not the case, certainly. And even black voters, huge percentage of them still always vote for Democrats, but even that is going down. So they're trying to use the Voting Rights Act to abuse its authority to compensate for the fact that they are basically losing their constituency.
Hans von Spakovsky, let me ask you this, and this is more of a general question, but I am clearly a novice when it comes to things like the law and judges and all this. But have judges simply lost their way these days? Like, is this a new phenomena where, you know, these judges, and primarily, I will say as a conservative, it seems like these leftist judges that were appointed by Obama and Biden, they seem to be applying the law related to politics and not the Constitution. Is this a new thing, or has this always been the situation?
Well, what I'll tell you is it's worse today than it's ever been. And the reason for that is that if you look at the folks that were nominated by Obama and particularly by Biden, they are the most left-wing ideologues ever put on the federal judiciary in our entire history. And that is why you're getting the kind of decisions we're getting. Can I just give you another quick example of that?
Sure, go ahead. Yeah.
You may have seen that, remember, that the Secretary of Homeland Security ended what they call TSP, Temporary Protected Status for Venezuelans. That's something that the president can extend to any group of aliens who can't return to their country, maybe because of a hurricane. That's how Haitians got here. That law says that the decision whether to grant TPS or to end it is entirely within the discretion of the president. Not only that, it has a provision in it saying no federal court has jurisdiction to review either the granting of this or the termination. And yet, what happened? You had a federal judge out in California tell NOM, you can't end TPS for Venezuelans. You had the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals affirm that. You had, in other words, you had all these judges in California basically ignoring federal law that tells them you don't have any jurisdiction over this and doing it anyway. That's how bad some of these judges are and how bad some of these federal courts have gotten.
Hans, let me ask you this question. Ketanji Brown-Jackson, she has been getting blasted on the socials, and folks that know a lot more about the law than I will tell you that she has no business being on the Supreme Court. What is your opinion of Ketanji Brown-Jackson and her performance since she became on the Supreme Court?
I think she is the most partisan of the justices. And if you look closely at her questioning in the oral arguments yesterday, she wasn't asking questions as if she was a justice. She was acting as if she was the co-counsel for the NAACP. You could see that in the way she was arguing with the lawyers for the voters in this case and arguing with the Deputy Solicitor General. That tells you that she'd already made up her mind about this from a political basis. And the other thing of it was, it's clear from her questions that she thinks using race to draw up political boundaries is something that is good all the time. She sees no constitutional problem with that at all. So she basically believes discriminating in the voting context is perfectly okay as long as you're discriminating in favor of black voters.
All right. You know what? I got a lot of clarity on this. Hans, as always, thank you for the great analysis, and we'll talk to you again soon. Hey, you want to hear something funny? Joan, you back from the trip to the little girl's room? Sorry, my bad.
I love
back?
the way my private conversations are.
Oh, it's okay.
Broadcast.
That's
yes,
all right.
I am back from the little girl's room.
Okay, very good. So you want to play Fun with Audio with John Fetterman?
Oh, yeah.
So he was asked a question about whether or not Kamala Harris could have come up with a Hamas-Israel agreement like Donald Trump did. Listen.
Do you think Harris could have gotten a deal with Hamas?
Well, I mean, you brought up a good point. I think I was the only Democrat early on to give President Trump credit for the peace deal. Why wouldn't you?
I mean, that's Harris could have got.
He's desperately trying not to answer this question.
Well, again, I don't know. She's not the president. But where I'm at right now, it's like, ask any of the hostages or their families. They think President Trump was a hero and he deserves, the kind of deal for that thing. I think that was really a remarkable development.
Do you think Harris could have got him out?
Now, this is Stephen A. Smith.
No. I think it's a silly question.
Oh, and Cuomo. Cuomo says it's a silly question. Why is that a silly question? Hold on.
It's a what? I think it's a silly question. Wait.
Bill O'Reilly, by the way.
You agree that it's a silly question? That's why they're clapping. They're clapping because they security. Right here.
I think the most important point is just realizing who did it, not hypothetically or anything. I'm saying it's like, here's what happened, and there are actual members of my party that have refused to even acknowledge that this was significant. And that's for me where it's like, hey, our politics might be different, but this was a significant development.
Okay.
And now also it's what Israel was able to accomplish. They had to neutralize Hamas, Hezbollah, Houthis, and Iran. And also,
here's the deal. Kamala Harris would not have had the backbone that Donald Trump did to go in there and talk to Qatar the way that they did regarding Hamas and pressuring Hamas. And there's no way she is going to do Israel any favors. So, yes, John Fetterman was correct and is correct. Kamala Harris is certainly not the president, Donald Trump.